This is a message from your guides reading for Human Angel. Okay, so I have two group crystals here, and I have two that I pulled for your reading here. Okay, so I'm going to use my zoisite to surround us in some protective space. So this is one of the group crystals. Okay, so zoisite has a lot to do with trusting the universe, trusting kind of the divine flow, letting go, allowing things to be what they are, but also trusting, almost like trusting in a good outcome kind of thing, even if you don't see it in front of you presently. And then this is the other group crystal that I have. So this is my peacock ore. So this has to do with chakras, balancing them out, aligning them. It has all of these different color variations in it. So it represents every chakra. And when I put it with this zoisite, which is all about trusting the universe, and the peacock ore is really also about clearing your chakras. So this would be about trust. And that as we're trusting the universe, we're letting go specifically of things that aren't in alignment with that are blocking our chakras or blocking our aura. And it feels like also from allowing things to manifest. I'm going to say specifically with your reading. So then this is my smoky quartz, and I pulled this for yours. And then I have here my malachite, and these two actually have a lot in common. Malachite is really good for grounding and also really good for protection. It can be physical protection even, but also psychic protection. And then smoky quartz as well. It's really good for psychic protection, deflecting negative energies, absorbing negative energies away from you. And then also grounding. It's actually a root chakra stone, believe it or not, with the color. But it is a root chakra stone. It's really good for grounding, centering, and manifesting. Manifesting keeps coming up, and that would be true because of the grounded energy. So obviously if you're grounding something, you're grounding it into manifestation. Okay, so let's see. Oh yeah, there was one question that they were already saying something about a minute ago. Okay, this would be question 3. That you were asking about with your parents coming to visit you. Okay, so the reason that you're feeling this now, what your guides are saying about that is the reason that you don't really want them to come and visit you now is because you're clearing a lot of past life things which actually have to do with some of them. But there's also this feeling that you're in this space where you are removing a lot of thought forms, a lot of things. Some of the stuff that you're removing actually came from them. Other things have to do with them in some way. It could be heightened, or in other words, strengthened by them being there. But also, even if that weren't the case, it's still having to do with what you are clearing. Just at this point right now with different shifts that you are going through, it just doesn't feel like the right time for you. I mean, to you, doesn't feel like the right time to you energetically. So your guides are saying that that's why you're feeling this kind of discord with that, where you don't really feel like connecting right now. It's actually because of what you're disconnecting from. And so they're saying that it would be good to set a boundary. Obviously, go with what you feel ultimately. Um, but that's what's coming through. It also feels like trusting yourself and realizing that there is a reason for what you're feeling, even if it's not exactly conscious as to why on your part. And so this actually means that they're not really feeling it either, even if they think they are. So this is almost some kind of negative behavior in a sense that they're acting out of, even though it doesn't seem like it. It seems like, oh, they just want to, visit their daughter or sister or whatever it is. But yeah, there's a reason for what you're feeling. There's a valid reason for what you're feeling. And it mainly just has to do with what you are removing and that it kind of conflicts with that. And also that it could actually aid you to remove something if you um, if you were better at setting boundaries. So it would actually give you an opportunity to aid you with removing some of this stuff if you listen to yourself. And I feel like you can easily explain that this is not a very good time for you right now to be visited, period. They're saying that it doesn't have to be some big thing. And it also feels like, and they'll respect that because they're going to have to. It feels like later, when you're more clear, it would be a better time. That's the feeling that I get. But it also feels like that's the feeling that you get as well. And so it just feels like you should trust that. You should honor your own intuition and just see that it's valid. Realize that it's valid. Okay, so question 2. Okay, so okay, it feels like you're right about this part where you're saying that you feel like you already had this thought form there when you were a child. That feels accurate because they're saying that this came from another lifetime. So that makes sense what you're saying. But it feels like it has something to do with being taken advantage of. It doesn't feel like it necessarily has to be sexual. It just feels like feels like it can have anything to do with being a victim or being taken advantage of, which has to do with different past lifetimes where this could have come up in multiple ways. It doesn't necessarily have to be a sexual thing, but because that's also a way that a person can be victimized or feel like something is taken from them or that they're taken advantage of. So the thought form can pose as different things, having to do with this sort of general original programming, if that makes sense. So if something goes along with this general idea, it can use that. It can use that general idea. This other thing down here, you're saying that when you try to ground, you get dizzy. I really feel like that's another thought form. I don't really feel like that has to do with this thought form. But I do feel like the other question, where you're asking here, you're saying that you feel pretty low and you're wondering if that's the thought form. And so it feels like they're saying yes, but they're also saying that there are multiple ones that send you feelings like that. It doesn't feel like it's only this specific thought form, but it does feel like a lot of them have to do with past lives and some from childhood also, or maybe not necessarily directly from childhood. Some of them, I feel like maybe there are a few. Most of them, though, it feels like past lifetimes, or even that they almost closely, like they kind of adapted and used this lifetime as well with childhood. But it doesn't feel like they necessarily came specifically from childhood. It feels like they're from past lives still. And it feels like also the few that were developed during your childhood, like specifically this one where it feels like they're there, those feel relatively small, almost like just smaller ones that are basically there because the other ones are there. I don't even feel like you would need to know what they are or worry about clearing them. Okay, so one thing that your guides are saying is to focus on almost searching for the main ones. So if you're getting pictures from a certain thought form, or if your guides are showing you pictures about a certain thought form, that's good and that's great, but ask if it goes back to something else, is what they're saying. So does it have a root? That's basically another thought form, or is this like them, or are they already showing you one that's like a main one and there are other thought forms that have kind of been created out of that? Because it feels like you want to get to the really main ones, otherwise this could take a long time, and it would take longer than it would actually need to. So they're saying that it just has to do with focusing and asking. And it feels like it's really good to do before you go to bed. You've probably already figured that out, just because of how your guides communicate with you in your dream state and what you're able to do in your dream state and what your subconscious is doing. So it feels like a lot of this you start it kind of consciously, but then it really takes off once you're not so conscious anymore, once you're dreaming. Okay, so this brings us to the fourth question, is what they're saying. Okay, where you're asking about a dream. Okay. Okay, this feels like somewhere where you're going astrally, is what this feels like. That's what they're saying right away. Okay, so when you are in the astral, sometimes you can go somewhere or you can see a being, for instance, and they're real. They're a real being, they're a real consciousness, they're really there. Other times you can see something that's almost out of your own manifestation. And there's a feeling like this is a real place that you're going, but at the same time, it doesn't feel like it was really there until you created it. It feels like um, you're kind of manifesting this place where you go in the astral. So it's also really good that you're saying that it has a high vibe, because this means that you're creating it out of this higher vibration. It also feels, they're saying it has to do also with, some of these energies are hard to explain. Um, Almost like your mind's interpretation of what you're attempting to create in the physical. So some of it is also your mind's interpretation while you're dreaming um, of what you're creating astrally. So some of it is actual, and then some of it is almost like your interpretation of where you're going astrally, so that you can almost consciously understand it, and you can be more conscious of where you're at, and when you wake up you can remember more of it. So it's almost like your conscious mind can be a little bit more included in a sense. Okay, I think there's one more question here. Question 1. Okay. Okay, so I'm assuming that you're meaning, again, a picture that you'd be seeing in your head. And definitely a thought form could easily do that. Thought form can send you any kind of picture in your head. That's basically what they do all the time, is send pictures and thoughts in your head and emotions and things like this. So they can basically send you any picture. If it's something that's out here that you're more seeing in front of you in some way. Um, Depending on what it is, there are definitely some things that they wouldn't be able to do. Um, they definitely wouldn't be able to move objects or things like that. I know you're not asking about that, but just giving you a for instance, there are some things that they're definitely not able to do because it just takes too much energy. You would have to have a pretty highly advanced thought form even to cast some kind of image in some way. But thought forms can definitely do that if they are advanced enough, like if they're basically already an entity level, which um, just means the council calls that identity level. That's like the third level of a thought form before they break off and they're just what you would call an entity. And really, then the only difference is they're still taking your energy. They're basically at that level, but they're taking your energy. So then there are certain things that they would be able to do. Like I've had thought forms almost put like an image on a wall or something. Like for instance, if they have an appearance, then I'll see like a face all of a sudden on a wall, and that's pretty much always a thought form. I don't know if I've ever seen an entity do that. Not that they wouldn't or couldn't, but I don't think I've necessarily really run into that. It's mainly thought forms that I've seen do that. Now, on the other hand, a lot of times guides will flash like sparkly lights and things like this. I'm sure a ghost could probably do something like that. I haven't really run into something like that. But your guides are saying that a ghost could do something like that. A thought form could definitely do something like that. Um, Flashing like a light or something like this, but it really depends on the brightness that you're referring to. But that's all if that's actually out in front of you, which I'm assuming that it's not. So if it isn't, just go with the first thing. Okay, so your guides think that you're doing really well. They think that you're getting to some deeper things and uncovering some deeper things, but they're also saying that that's the point of it. And so um, that's why they were saying in the beginning to ask about like the specifically the roots of the different thought forms. Because it feels like that's what's going to help you speed the process up. Okay, so that is all that your guides have to say for this reading. Thank you very much, Human Angel, for allowing me to do another one for you, and I will see you next week. Namaste.